Well, if you've ever been to Carrabassett Valley, you know it's not your regular New England rural town. Aside from looking different, the town in Franklin County has other unique aspects it does differently that you won't find anywhere else.
Now, the book, A Town Built by Ski Bums, dives into the foundation of the town in 1972. Joining us now is the author, Virginia M. Wright. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So can you tell us a little bit about the book and how you came to write it? What inspired this?
Sure. It's a project that I did with the Carrabassett Valley History Committee, and they were looking for a companion to the John Christie book, The Story of Sugarloaf. And that focuses on the history of the Sugarloaf Resort. The committee was looking for the other side of the story, the town that grew up around the resort.
Yeah, how did Senator Angus King get involved with this book?
He is a friend of one of the committee members, and he asked him to do it. Angus King has a condo up there. He's been a sugarloafer for a long time. Yeah.
When did that conversation sort of come about first? And then can you kind of explain the process? You know, were you conducting interviews and, you know, learning about the history? What was that sort of like?
So they reached out to me around 2020. I was at Down East Magazine, and I was thinking about retirement, and it was kind of the perfect transition out. And yes, there were a lot of interviews. They had done some research. There were a lot of newspaper clippings. But we wanted to take this story back, all the way back to the geological forces that formed the valley. So there was a lot of research involved in that. Some of that had already been done. There was a lot of digging into the logging history in that area. Because it's not, there's never been a history written about the Carrabassett Valley itself. So it really involved getting into old newspaper clippings, old histories that sometimes they just had a little side mention of things that were going on in Carrabassett Valley. And then there was a whole sort of sporting camp period too before the ski era started.
Yeah. What makes that area so unique from other communities here in Maine?
Well, as far as the town goes, there are a couple things. I mean, it was, as the book says, founded by ski bums, and so it's one of the youngest towns in the state. It's only 53 years old. And the people who founded it were mostly in their 20s and early 30s, and they didn't have any municipal management experience at all. That kind of freed them up to create the kind of town that they wanted. So they were, lowering taxes was the primary motivation for founding a town, but they were very innovative about creating an economy based on outdoor recreation. And that includes a lot of collaborations, like the Sugarloaf Golf Course is owned by the town, but managed by Sugarloaf. There's the Anti-Gravity Center, which is a state-of-the-art community gym with equipment for training skiers and snowboarders, and that's a collaboration with Carrabassett Valley Academy. And the mountain bike trail network, which I think is over 80 miles now. It's been almost built entirely by volunteers with funds from the town, funds from Sugarloaf. So, so you have this town of like 700 people with very low taxes because of the way they do things.
So Carrabassett Valley is home to the second largest ski resort east of the Mississippi, Sugarloaf, and the first trail was cut back in 1950. Can you tell us more about what you found out about Sugarloaf writing this book? I know you mentioned there's already a book about Sugarloaf, but did any other sort of nuggets, you know, come out of your research?
I think that community spirit, there's a real sense of ownership among the people who ski there, among Sugarloafers, and I think that that's pretty unique among big resorts like that. People feel like it's their ski mountain.
Definitely.
It's funny, it's called A Town Built by Ski Bums, and you wrote the book, and you're not a ski bum.
I'm not a ski bum. I'm not a ski bum.
Did it inspire you to maybe give it a try, or at least appreciate, you know, the passion that they have?
If I were younger, I would I would go back to ski. I have skied in the past, but now it feels a little bit too intimidating to me to ski now. But biking, maybe. There's some really nice biking trails in there, and I could do that, I think.
What has the buzz been, you know, about the book? What have you heard from readers and then the community itself? You know, what are people telling you about it?
It has been selling really well in Carrabassett Valley. That's another example, I think, of the community spirit in that town. They are so excited about this book and having this story in words at this point. You know, one of the advantages of it, even though I mentioned some of the challenges about digging up that logging pass. One of the advantages about the ski pass, the ski history, is that a lot of those people who started it are still here.
Oh, great.
And so we were able to do first-person interviews with them about those early years. And it was crazy in the early years.
Yeah. Is it true that you've driven the full 527 miles of Route 1 here in Maine?
Yeah.
527?
Yes, on Route 1, yes, yeah, I did that for Down East Magazine. That's
Wow.
right.
Do you recommend it?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it the way I did it. I mean, I only had about a week to do that and stop and talk to people along the way, and it would have been nice to have a little more time to do it. But yes, it's fun. It's fun to go along the whole Route 1.
Yeah. What's one thing that you found out about Carrabassett Valley Academy that kind of like, wow, I didn't know that, or something just so interesting and out of
About Carrabassett Valley? I think it's the way that town runs. That I didn't know that going into it, that they did all these collaborations. So that was really interesting to me, the way this town has carved out that economy, that recreation economy.
A very special place. Yeah. And where can people get their hands on your book?
It's at local bookstores.
Awesome.
Yep.
Can they also order it online?
Yes, it's available online.
Do you have a website, or
I do? I have a website, but you can't order it from me. You go to Down East Books.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
One last thing.
Very cool.
Any other books out in the future
Not
for you
right
coming?
now.
All
No.
right.
Just enjoy this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
stopping
you.
by. We appreciate it.
Thanks.